Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get this show on the road. So, Gary?
Yes,
Let's
thank
get
you.
started.
Everyone, please be quiet. Thank you. We've started the meeting. Everyone in the room, I was talking to you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Okay. Chair Smith and Commissioner Schull are out of the office today, so Vice Chair Schrader will chair the meeting, and we do have a quorum with Commissioner Fisher and Savis present. We will start with the Housing Authority of Clackamas County. Chair, would you please convene as the Housing Authority Board?
I now convene as the Housing Authority Board of Clackamas County.
Thank you, Chair. We have a request, and that is to accept the Housing and Urban Development Move to Work status. There was a memo in your packet. Rod Cook is the Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services. Go ahead, Rod.
Yes, for the record, Rod Cook, Health, Housing, Human Services. And as Gary mentioned, I'm here today seeking approval to apply for the Move to Work status with HUD and hire a consultant to assist in the application. This application would allow other jurisdictions that have already done this around us, but this would basically allow us to use our rental assistance funds to help the residents build either a savings account or work on their credit. Like we would report their credit and they go into a cooperative agreement with us. So this basically lets you use rental assistance funds in a more flexible way that eventually helps the residents be able to purchase a home down the road. So it's a program that HUD is pushing, and we think it's a great program for our people.
Thank you for that, Rod. Always a pleasure to see you. I do want to announce that Ann Leestra is present as well as our Housing Authority person. So, yes, Sonia, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing this, and I had a question for you. I'll just ask it now. So there was some media analysis on the expected increase in homelessness due to the evictions going up, because now the moratorium is ended, and rent assistance is also now, a lot of it is dwindling down. And I'm just wondering if systematically, and you don't need to answer this right now, Rod, but I'm going to just plant the seed so we can talk about it. Is there anything that we could be doing to catch the people that are looking at eviction before they actually get evicted, to look at getting some navigation, case management, just support to folks through the system of people going through that process?
If I may, is this related?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's related. It's related to rent assistance and just how we're dealing with the issue. So I'm just asking Rod the question because it brings it up. But he doesn't have to answer it right now.
Yeah, it's a big question, and I would like to go back and talk to the team and come to you with a more formal
Yeah, I appreciate
answer.
that. Thank
that's
you.
a good,
That
complex
would be great.
situation.
Commissioner Savis, do you have any questions?
No, I'm ready to move forward.
Ready to move.
We have the option we're applying for the grant.
Yes,
Right.
this is just approval to apply, and then once we develop the actual application, we'll post that for 30 days. We'll bring it back to you before we actually submit it to the feds.
Okay, so the $10, the origination of that is from the net proceeds from?
Yes,
So
yes.
it's really out of the HACS budget?
Yes, it's out of the rental assistance fund. Yes.
Okay.
Does that impede, take resources away from what would be housing?
You know, I asked the same question of the housing. I said, so does this mean that there's less money to give people for rental assistance? And the answer is yes, because it is the same pot of money. So that's where we're going to have a lot of community input. We're going to talk to the residents and see if this is something that they see as beneficial. And that's the plan we would bring back for you to approve or not approve after it's posted for 30 days. So there is that kind of like that policy decision happening.
Yeah, just for the record, I'm okay with moving forward with the grant. I would certainly like to see how this monetizes out so we can actually look at the math and say, do we build less homes or help less people for this? So we understand the math. And
Yeah, this wouldn't affect the number of new units we're building. This is more about those people that we're helping with their rent currently. So this is really about, do we want to continue to help them forever with their rent, or do we want to help them get to a position where they can purchase? And we're about to try to sell all of our scattered sites. So this program will put a lot of people in position to actually buy the home that they're living in. So it's kind of a strategy for a long-term strategy, I'd call it.
And it wouldn't be retroactive, right?
No, no.
It'd just be going forward.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Gary, do we need a motion for this?
Yes, please.
So,
I move to give staff the authority to apply for the grant.
okay, now Ann is online. Does she want to second that, or do I need a second from another commissioner? Okay, thank you. Nice to see you today. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Let's call the poll.
Commissioner Leenstra,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schrader.
Aye, it is approved. Thank you so much, Rod,
Thank you.
for being here today. So I'm going to adjourn as the Housing Authority of Clackamas County. Now we're going to, or actually, is it adjourned?
Could you now convene as the Water and
And now we're
Environment
going to
Services
convene
Board?
as the body of the Water Environment Services, and I see Greg coming up. Okay.
Thank you. Next is a request for consent agenda for the Water Environment Services Board. It is approval of a permit to use Key Wet Infrastructure West Company for 3 acres at the Tri-City Water Resource Recovery for temporary office trailer, vehicle, and equipment storage and material storage related to the I-205 Bridge Improvements Project. Contract value is $252,000. Funding is through user payments. No county general funds are involved. Greg Geis is the Director of Water and Environment Services. Go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. As you know, they're going to expand the I-205 bridge, and they need places to store equipment, trailers, things like that. We have some vacant land down there. They would like to rent or lease 3 acres of our vacant land for the next 3 years at $6,000 a month, $18,000 per quarter. So it's a source of revenue for us for the next 3 years.
Okay. Any questions, colleagues?
So so the contract value was spread over 3 years?
Yes.
So, okay. It's a sweet deal.
It is.
Sonia?
Just making sure this is something that you want to do. It seems like it's in the best interest of the district.
Definitely, it's a source of revenue, and we do have illegal dumping that's happening in that area because it's kind of isolated, and we think it could help with that. So,
Great.
yeah.
I think it's a good
That's
thing.
really good.
Thanks.
So do we need a roll call vote for this,
No
Gary?
motion.
we
You're
can
just authorizing to put on your consent agenda for this Thursday.
All righty. So Greg, we will do so. I think we're all in agreement.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Now I'd like to adjourn as the body of Water and Environment Services and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you,
go.
Chair. Next, I'm going to flip ahead. So Commissioner Shull had asked for an update on the distribution of ARPA funds to businesses. He is not here today. However, on your consent agenda today is an item to authorize the distribution of these funds through a contractor. So I would like to go forward on this item to seek your approval, Commissioners, if that's okay.
Let's move ahead and we'll make sure Commissioner Shull
Okay.
gets the information.
So this is an update on the distribution of ARPA funds to businesses. We have Nancy Bush, County Operating Officer, and Sarah Ekman, Interim Director of Business and Community Services, to update you on what has happened, what has not happened, and what the plan is going forward. So please go ahead, Sarah and Nancy.
Gary, question. I'm on my iPad and I see it on the agenda, but I don't see that there are any materials. Am I missing something?
There are no materials. It's a verbal update.
Good morning. Nancy Bush, the County Operations Officer. So we are going to talk a little bit today about our funding for businesses from ARPA. There is a tie here too, which Sarah's going to go over with what has been happening with CARES dollars, switching over to ARPA dollars and getting the dollars out. Admittedly, we should have gotten the dollars out a little bit earlier, but there have been a lot of obstacles in trying to get that done. So Sarah's going to go through that and talk about that today. We are ready to get those out, as Gary mentioned. We have the contract ready to go, and Sarah will be talking about both of those items right now. So
I'm sorry, I
Sarah?
want to tee it up. So the board authorized $3 million of ARPA dollars to be distributed to businesses in Clackamas County almost a year ago, and it has not been distributed yet.
Yeah.
We're leading off with that. It has not been distributed in almost a year. We're owning it, but here's the plan moving forward. And you tell us if you want to stop and reallocate those funds, or if you want to continue going forward to distribute to businesses. But it's been almost a year, Commissioners. I apologize, but that's the issue here.
So may I ask a question? I'm assuming it was a year because, the infrastructure, for us to get it out there, I mean, it's been kind of difficult,
Yeah, Sarah, do you
hard to
want to
do.
answer that?
Do you want to?
Okay, Sarah will
Could you just-
answer that question.
Question that's ahead of that.
Sure.
Answer,
Go ahead.
just so I understand.
Go ahead.
We did get money out the door during COVID went to the business recovery centers, and I went out to all those businesses. Do you happen to recall how much we did distribute to businesses?
It was just a little over 8 million.
Okay,
that did
that'll
go to
help me
businesses.
put this in
Yes,
context.
yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. All right, so Sarah.
Wonderful, thank you. Yes, as Nancy mentioned, it has taken us a little while to get our ARPA. There's a total of $4 million that was dedicated and allocated by you, the board, for distribution to the businesses. So initially, when we got that, we really had to wade through all of the ARPA guidance. And while we were doing that, we were wrapping up all of those distributions that went out with other funding sources, most notably CARES dollars. Those wrapped up earlier this year, and we were already embarking kind of in parallel track on putting together a program for ARPA. We explored a couple of different options and ways to do that. And when we went out to our partners in the business community, what they said is we explored options, things like technical assistance and programmatic service delivery to businesses, is that businesses still really need money. And that's what they're hearing. And that was through partners like our business recovery centers. As they reach out and connect with small business in the county, they said businesses still need money. Some of them didn't apply for funding early on because they thought they could make it. Several of them have reported that even though they did make it, they really depleted all of their resources in order to do that. And so there's still a tremendous need out there, and we have other partners who are also going to be distributing funding through their ARPA dollars to the business community in the coming months as well. So you'll see more of that happening. We did put a focus on helping businesses recover. So initially, our programs were designed to help businesses with expenses, and that was kind of an outcome of some of our funding sources. They had to demonstrate they had expended dollars, and then we were essentially giving them kind of a reimbursement, if you will, for that. Now with ARPA dollars, we're able to give them business recovery assistance, and so we've designed a program, which will be coming up in a little while, also through MISO, that would allow us to provide dollars to businesses who are most impacted. And what we did was we used the ARPA guidance from the federal level, and we designed a program where businesses who are in one of two categories, either in one of our 3 qualified census tracts, which is referred to in the materials for MISO today, or the travel, tourism, and hospitality industries. And that can be applied rather broadly by our partner who would distribute those funds. So our businesses are expecting more opportunities and are keeping an eye on those. We do get several inquiries through each week as we go through that. So to date, in order to get us to where we are with MISO, what we did was post a notice of funding opportunity following the county's grant process. And that essentially made it known that we had these funds to distribute, and we were asking for proposals from partners to say, I have the capacity and capability to distribute these dollars, and then tell us how they would go about doing that. We had 2 proposers, MISO and a second one. The second application really wasn't fully responsive to the request, and so we weren't able to grant that. It was a small organization that really wanted to focus very specifically on one cross-section of the business community and not more broadly. We did have experience with MISO and knew them, and so we went through the evaluation process, and they were considered the awarded proposer through that notice of funding opportunity process. What we've done then since then is worked with the finance department, county council, and others to develop the subrecipient grant agreement that's before you today. It outlines the program. MISO is intending to do $10,000 grants. That was their proposal. And they have to do this in 60 days from the date you sign this agreement. So even though it's taken us a little while now that we're to this juncture, things will move very quickly. Part of the requirements of them were that they do a very robust outreach strategy. They're prepared to do that, and we know they have those relationships in the community, so they're ready to go with that as soon as this agreement's executed. They also have to provide technical assistance to applicants, and we heard that from you as the board and from others, that we wanted to be sure that applicants were able to easily apply and have success with submitting their application. And so They have to do the outreach strategy, the technical assistance, and then distribute the grants within 60 days. Let's see. So our plan moving forward, if you do approve moving forward with the MISO agreement, would be to do $3 million through that. And then the other $1 million we've carved out for more of a technical assistance program using some of our partnering agencies in the county. And that, we would come back to you with the more full update on that. But that would be to provide assistance out, more on that programmatic service delivery side, help businesses build capacity, get back on their feet with other types of assistance other than monetary assistance. And we're also coordinating with our community-based organization work that's happening with other ARPA dollars. I believe those are all of my main points, and so I'd love to hear your questions.
Any questions, commissioners?
Yeah, I've had my light on.
Yeah, it's not working, but that's okay. Go ahead.
Well, actually, I have to reach over there to get it. So
Oh, there you
today
go.
I'm Martha on that.
Oh, you're Martha
I'm
today.
Martha on that one today, so.
Gee, it's like, what's that movie? Yeah, there you go. Okay, we switched identities. Go for it. All
So,
right.
you mentioned that, Sarah, that we got 8 million out, right? And that was CARES or CARES and ARPA?
There was no ARPA money. It was CARES, and there was also some state, it was county CARES and state CARES.
Okay. Of that 8, were those generally including historically disadvantaged communities?
They did. We consistently put in requirements that the outreach be to those communities, but the application and eligibility criteria were defined differently through each iteration of that based on our funding source, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so in the end, what was the result of the distribution of dollars?
In terms of historically disadvantaged, we weren't able to track that as fully as we would have liked. Some of our early funding sources were from the state, and we were not able to, by terms of the agreements, collect the demographic information that would have given us that data.
Okay.
So anecdotally, we feel that we met a lot of requirements and really got dollars into the hands of those who have been historically disadvantaged, but we did lack some of the hard data.
Right, and I think you've said it, and I think you've said it before, is that the ARPA dollars and the just call it the red tape or the administrative cost to distribute these dollars is pretty intense, and so the BRCs, or is that what it is? The BRCs weren't, didn't want to handle that, right? So they couldn't. So MISO is, it's in the packet for approval for this. So my question is that are these dollars? Because I see the contracts for $3 million and $2,607,000 goes directly to payments,
Correct.
and then $120,000 goes towards MISO, essentially,
For
right?
administrative costs.
Okay, so my question is, in the distribution of this, is this exclusively for historically disadvantaged, or is everyone eligible? Will the outreach be broad?
The outreach will be broad. The eligibility, though, is very specific in terms of either the qualified census tract or the travel, tourism, and hospitality industries. And so that will be the eligibility factor that will determine if an applicant is successful, is if their business falls within either the geographic location of the QCT or has a code, essentially, that associates them with the travel, tourism, and hospitality industries.
Okay, and is that a result of the ARPA requirement itself?
Yes,
Okay,
it
So
is.
it's not ours, it's the
No,
ARPA requirement.
It is an ARPA requirement.
So if we want to give business assistance, this is the only means of ARPA for that. So I guess the next question is, and probably my last, I think, on this one, is the eligibility or the distribution going to be greater greater under this criteria than it would have been for the CARES Act distribution?
Can you help me with your
Okay.
question a little bit
I'm
greater
trying
than?
to say, if I was a business and I was,
to have meet
I'm one of
CARES
the,
Act.
if I was a business of the CARES Act and I was a historically disadvantaged community member, okay, would I be seeing a greater distribution under the ARPA or less than I would have under the CARES? Which one do I see the greater benefit? CARES, ARPA?
So if I understand do you mind? If I understand your question correctly, you're asking if, like if you're in the QTC, would you be more likely to get ARPA or more likely to get CARES? Is that the question?
Well, that's one way of looking at it. I'm just saying the monetary benefit.
It's going to become under ARPA because under CARES, though we did the outreach, it wasn't specific for those groups. So you didn't have to be in a QTC or in tourism to get CARES dollars.
Okay.
So you're more likely to get it through ARPA.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not really being clear. So maybe I'll just ask the question differently, maybe I'll get to my answer. So let's say that there's just a very few businesses that are eligible for these ARPA dollars under this distribution. Do they get the full award, or do they just get something that is commensurate with the size of their operation?
That's your question.
So they would get the full award. The way that the ARPA qualification, they call it presumptive eligibility, and so they're presumed by the federal level to have been disproportionately impacted and therefore historically disadvantaged. And so those awards, though, are basically like a flat fee, similar to what we've done in the past. So if it's $10,000 to a smaller operation or a larger operation, they're still going to get $10,000 apiece.
Okay. And if only half that apply, it would be 20,000. And if only half of that apply, it's 30,000. So it's really dependent upon how many people are actually eligible, how many businesses are eligible.
It's a great point. There's an underlying assumption that we would be oversubscribed, as we have been for all of our other opportunities, and so we wouldn't be in that situation. But if we were to find ourselves there, we would have to make those decisions.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for that. Anything else, Commissioner, that you would like to add?
So how much would each business get? Do we know that?
$10,000.
10,000. Okay, and you expect it to be oversubscribed?
We do.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. That's what our partners are telling us.
Thank you for that update, and it would be nice to get a list of the businesses that
Certainly.
got the awards, if we can take a look at that. I'm assuming that, colleagues, that we are going to continue with the distribution, even though it's a year after the fact. Am I getting head nods? Yes? No?
Well, I think that's what,
That's what I think we're
that's
doing,
what
yeah.
Commissioner Scholl, at least I heard him asking the question, is there still the need?
Need,
Is there still the need? I don't think who would want to decline having, receiving some extra funds, but is there still the need? And if not the need, then I think the point was, should it go back into the
Right.
ARPA coffers? So I just don't know what the need is. I mean, I don't know the financial condition of all these companies. I assume that they're still probably in a little bit of despair.
Yeah.
There is. And from what we hear, there's a great amount of despair still out there, and businesses still are struggling to recover. And really, funding is what they need to do that, because they did deplete their resources. They incurred costs. A lot of them that will be covered in this travel, tourism, and hospitality also suffered from lost revenue. And that wasn't something that was covered in some of the earlier rounds because the funding requirements were structured around expenses incurred. So we'll be able to give funding to businesses that previously didn't qualify because they didn't have tourism revenue coming in, for example. So we'll hit, some of the businesses that have been eligible in the past would be eligible again, but there's a good number of them that would be newly eligible because of not having captured revenue that they would have had COVID not been happening.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner?
Yeah, so I'm looking through the consent agenda materials, and I'm not seeing, I see the criteria of the qualified census tracts or travel, tourism, hospitality, and then you just mentioned a criteria for lost revenue. I don't know why I'm sure it's somewhere here. But what is the other criteria for that will be used to award the $10,000 per business?
You're seeing the criteria in terms of eligibility determination, and so the travel, tourism, and hospitality was an outcome of a lost revenue being an issue for our businesses, but they don't have to provide an additional criteria, if you will, on top of being in either those industries or in the qualified census tracts. And that's by design because of the ARPA guidance.
Okay, so now I'm confused.
Oh, well.
Well, I really want to understand. So I thought I understood that you said that lost revenue would be a criteria in this round, and it was not in the other CARES dollars that were distributed.
The prior dollars were very specific in that you had to articulate and provide documentation about expenses you incurred.
Right.
This will allow more flexibility for businesses that have had revenue losses, although it's not a specific criteria when they apply. But because it's not as specific, it allows that. And that's what we heard from our partners in tourism here with the county, was that travel tourism operators, they weren't able to make money in the same way that they had. And so having them be eligible by nature of their industry then allows them to come into the eligibility criteria.
So follow up, since we expect this to be oversubscribed, then what will the criteria be to select who will get these resources?
We will, MISO has, and I could, they have a matrix, and I can bring that forward. Essentially, if you apply and you're either in a qualified census tract or in the industry, you will be eligible. But it will come down to then if they're, if they've had a prior award, for example, with Clackamas County, they'll be at the bottom of the list where we've asked them to prioritize those who've had no prior awards. That's one of the main ones. And then if they have to do additional layers, they will apply those and check in with us to make sure that they're consistent.
Okay, so I would really be interested to know what the criteria is.
If we could get that, that would be great. Because I have a question about that too, because travel and hospitality, when you talk about those businesses, are we talking hotels?
Yes, ma'am.
Hotels,
Yes, ma'am.
Bed and breakfasts,
Yes, ma'am.
those kinds of things that normally would have gotten tourism dollars, but tourism dollars are going up right now. So I guess my question is their funding stream being restored? Or they still need the help? I mean,
I think what we're hearing is they are still needing help. And yes, if the funding stream, it is starting to climb,
Right,
but they still have
right.
lost revenue
It's not-
from
Okay.
COVID, which is what the criteria is talking about. It's like if you have, the loss of revenue is from COVID.
Okay.
And yes, hopefully that's starting to come up, but they still have that. That lost
Okay, and
revenue.
this would include restaurants too, I'm assuming? Restaurant businesses,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's all the questions I have. So colleagues, I don't think we need a vote, but we need a thumbs up as to whether or not we move forward. Is that
Don't
correct?
need to vote, but want to know if you're comfortable moving forward on finally distributing these ARPA funds to businesses? Or do you want to pause or hold?
I am comfortable. I don't know where my two colleagues are with this, or if you want to put other overlays on it.
I just want to understand what the criteria will be. I just can't imagine if there's going to be more applicants than money that isn't thought through somewhere, written down somewhere.
So and we have done that all along, and we've always had conversations with MISO too. It's like, here's our next layer, here's our next layer. I think Sarah's trying to look it up right now. But we've done this even through, have always been oversubscribed, and we've always had these conversations.
So just like the checklist of criteria and what's prioritized and how are these decisions made and who's awarded and who's not. Because this recovery time, in my mind, is very critical coming out of COVID. And this is where you really see the businesses that thought they were going to make it and then they're falling apart. So that might be a criteria. Like what,
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I would like to know.
And
Okay.
I'd be happy to share. I have a document here from MISO. One of the additional things is 50 employees or less would be eligible. There's a series of questions, were they delinquent on any taxes prior to this date? Are they in compliance with all the local laws and that? So it goes through that. Do they have a business address in Clackamas County, registered with the Secretary of State? But when it comes down to the next section, it really focuses on prior aid received in terms of those initial levels of prioritization, according to payroll reports, and then have they received prior county aid and prior federal emergency aid. So we're really trying to put dollars first into the hands of those folks who've had no prior aid, and then go from there in terms of how many.
So could you get a copy of that to us? 'Cause
Certainly.
you haven't seen it, right? Is that what I'm-
I don't know where it is.
Yeah, we haven't So I think that's one of the things that you're asking for
Yeah,
is a
I don't
copy
want to,
of
I don't
that.
want to hold it up. I also noticed in reading the consent agenda materials that nonprofits, if they're within those census tracts, might also be eligible. And so I need to declare a potential conflict of interest because I think that the address for my husband's nonprofit theater company is in one of those census tracts. I don't think he's going to be applying, but just in case, I want to declare that potential conflict.
All right. Commissioner Savas, you wanted to say
Yeah,
something?
so the question I have is that in regard to the qualified census tracts, I see the areas listed. So is that where the business is located, not where the person resides?
That
It's
is
the business address.
correct. And one of the first determinations on the list that I'll share with you is the business address within one of the 3 QCTs, and then it has the HUD user link to verify that, which MISO will verify all of those.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm getting more comfortable with this, and I also want to, I'd love to see any more detailed criteria that Commissioner Fisher's asking for. I'd like to see that as well.
Okay.
But I think I have a better understanding of what this is and why, so. And if we can, really help those businesses in that there is that, what's the word, tiering, that the ones who got help in the past are at the bottom, and the ones who need it the most or did not get it are at the top. I feel more comfortable with that as well.
Okay. All right, colleagues, I think you're getting 2 thumbs up with the caveat that we will get.
Oh, I'm
Criteria
fine moving
information.
forward, and I
Okay.
trust that
Yeah.
that Sarah will get, she always does. She always gets
Okay.
us what we ask for, so I appreciate that.
So I'm hearing okay to distribute these funds. I'm jumping ahead to the consent agenda request for this item. Are you okay moving forward for this Thursday, or do you need to see the information first before we put it on the consent agenda?
What would you like to do, Commissioner?
Yeah, I'm not interested in holding it up, but I would like to understand it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be prepared that if our other 2 colleagues are here Thursday, they might have questions. So I'd just be prepared for that. So getting those answers quickly would be beneficial. So I did the math. 260 businesses would qualify for this at $10,000. So that's the number of businesses
Yeah.
we're talking about.
I would say I'm hearing that we should move ahead with the expectation, if it's on the consent agenda, we may have 2 colleagues that may want to have it removed to get some of these questions answered, or perhaps they can listen to the tape and they will be satisfied.
We just make it a discussion item for Thursday, knowing there'll
right.
probably be conversation.
All right, let's just do that.
Let's do that. So this will be
All
a
right.
discussion item on this Thursday's business meeting, the number 2 item on business and community services.
Thank
the
you,
MISO
Gary.
grant. Okay. Very good. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you,
Thank you.
Sarah and Nancy. Now we'll move to the consent agenda request. Other consent agenda requests, we'll start with the Sheriff's Office. I want to confirm, Captain O'Neill, you're here for that? Great. All right. This is a consent agenda request, Sheriff's Office. Approval to apply for an equipment grant through the Oregon Office of Emergency Management for Command Center Trailer, Snowcat, and Communications Vehicle. Estimated grant value is $825,495. Funding is through the Oregon Office of Emergency Management. No county general funds are involved. Captain Brad O'Neill from the Sheriff's Office. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Commissioners and Kent County Administrator Schmidt. For the record, I'm Brad O'Neill, Patrol Captain for the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff's Office is seeking your approval to apply for the State Preparedness and Incident Response Equipment, or known as SPIRE, grant program through the Oregon Emergency Management. This grant furthers the Board of County Commissioners' strategic priority of ensuring safe, healthy, and secure communities. There are neither general fund dollars associated with this request, nor is there any cost to the county. Rather, if awarded, Oregon Emergency Management will procure the provided equipment to CCSO, where the equipment will remain until its useful life expires. OEM will maintain ownership of the equipment, while CCSO will be responsible for storing, insuring, and maintaining the equipment for its useful life. The estimated cost of the equipment that we are requesting is $825,495, which includes a mobile command center, a Snowcat, and a communications vehicle. The Sheriff's Office appreciates your consideration of this request, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions, colleagues?
I kind of want to know what a snowcat looks like, but that's for another day.
What are you going to say? Thank you, Commissioner.
Where would this equipment be located?
It would most likely be in our secured lot around the Bowman, or our Bowman building, North Station next to PSDC. the Public Safety Training Center, or like a snowcat may be closer to the actual snow line, depending on what time of year that is.
Is there a facility on the mountain that you all have?
Not that the sheriff's office has, no. We would look into partners with either ODOT or U.S. Forest Service has offered in the past to have us store certain things on their properties.
Yeah, it would just seem that the nature of this kind of equipment, it would just seem to be somewhat, it just seemed logical to have it closer to the mountain, right?
Right.
Right, and then as opposed to trailering it all the way there, and not alone that, also the delay. Let's just say it takes an hour or an hour and a half or 2 hours to get it up to the mountain. That's a 1 or 2 hours delay in response.
Right, and the snowcat for sure, the communications vehicle and the command post could be utilized other places than Mount Hood. We have urban search and rescues that we may use those for as well. The snowcat would be kind of useless down here unless we have another snowpocalypse in the metro area. But yeah, as far as getting the equipment up there, most of our volunteers and deputies usually come through this area to stop and pick up the equipment. So there's very little lag in the actual response time in that.
Well, I'm comfortable if it doesn't take any general fund or sheriff's operating funds, so.
Okay. All right, Commissioner, you okay? All right.
I'm going to Google images of
Snowcat.
snowcat.
Do that. They have them up at Timberline. They're a tracked vehicle that you can fit multiple people in.
Yeah, I'm a skier, I know. Right. I've been up there. Thank you. All right, Gary, I think we're okay.
Okay, thank you, Captain O'Neill. Next, disaster management, approval of an intergovernmental grant agreement between Clackamas County and Oregon Health Authority for purchase of a refrigerated trailer. Grant value is $99,865, funded through reimbursement by the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved. Daniel Neibauer is Interim Disaster Management Director. Go ahead.
I'm Daniel Neibauer, Interim Disaster Management Director. Commissioners, Administrator Schmidt. This grant will allow us to purchase a refrigerated trailer. We got very close to needing it in previous COVID surges, and this would allow us, if we have another surge or have another means, to be able to ensure that we can properly store anybody that we would need to.
Okay, is this for vaccination purposes?
No.
No?
No, this would be for those that have passed.
Pardon?
These are those that have passed away. So if funeral
got it.
homes are
I'm
getting
sorry.
overwhelmed,
I wasn't tracking.
we
I
would
apologize. Okay.
we would then be able to store the bodies properly.
Okay.
Have we experienced a need in Clackamas County for such a unit?
We got very close. I can't tell you exactly how close we were, but the medical examiner and I were talking on a regular basis, and she was working very hard to make sure that everything was moving through the system quickly, so they didn't.
And that event was what?
That was 5 months ago.
The event in particular?
Oh, COVID, sorry. That was for COVID when we had the Delta strain.
Okay.
The hospitals were very overwhelmed and needed capacity. And they were requesting capacity that didn't exist. So this would give us that capacity for that.
Okay.
Or if there was another incident, sometimes a very large car accident could stress the system.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Any other questions, Commissioners? All right, thank you.
Okay, next, Business and Community Services, approval of an infrastructure and additional shared cost agreement with Clackamas Workforce Partnership and required one-stop partners for the Workforce Clackamas One Stop. Contract value is $15,516.48. Funding is through cost allocations to required one-stop partners. No county general funds are involved. Sarah Ekman, Interim Business and Community Services Director. Go ahead.
Hello again. I am here today, and unfortunately, I was going to be joined with someone from Clackamas Workforce Partnership who wasn't able to make it, so I hope to answer all of your questions. This infrastructure funding agreement retroactively covers the previous program year, 2021. As you notice, as you look through this, you'll see that the dates look as though they're in arrears. The IFA process for 2021 was delayed because the previous program year, 2020, was delayed due to COVID. Throughout the pandemic, several processes related to the WorkSource Clackamas Center and all of the other WorkSource Oregon centers were suspended. or put on hiatus or waived since the Oregon Employment Department and other key partners had to pivot their work to focus on unemployment insurance, COVID-19 response, transitions to remote work, and the like. Additionally, both the prior year 20 and 21 IFAs were low priority for Clackamas Workforce Partnership and WorkSource partners as we continue to focus on the impacts of COVID and COVID recovery, as well as WorkSource reopening processes and other key initiatives. Let's see. So in part, this is due to nothing having changed since 2019 in the IFA, which is before you. The contributing partners remain the same, the costs have not changed, and the other items that the agreement covers have also remained the same. So we wanted to give you a little bit of explanation as to why it looks as though we're doing something for a time period that has passed. And then coming up for the 22 IFA process, that is underway, so you'll see that in the more expected time frame, and it will put everything back on track.
Okay. Questions, colleagues? Everybody's lights are on, so should I just assume?
That's because Tootie turns them off. She likes to have control of all the lights, and so she gets mad at me if I turn mine off.
I know, I just don't go there, guys, just saying. But anyway, okay, no questions? We got it? And Sarah, we talked about number 2. We were going to pull that out as a discussion item.
Correct. Number 2 will become a discussion item for this Thursday, and I'll read it. It's approval of a subrecipient grant agreement with Micro Enterprise Services of Oregon, or MISO, to provide a small business assistance grant program on behalf of Clackamas County in support of the local business community recovering from the economic impacts of COVID-19 pandemic. Grant value is $3 million. Funding is through ARPA funds. No county general funds are involved. So we'll have this as a discussion item at this Thursday's business meeting.
All right.
Thank you, Sarah.
Sounds good, thank you.
Next, Health, Housing, Human Services. Here we go, a long list.
This is
Approval
a
of an
long
amendment to a
list.
non-federal subrecipient grant agreement with Clackamas Women's Services for system diversion, homelessness prevention, and rapid rehousing services, extending the duration of the agreement. Agreement value remains at $520,000. Funding is through the Oregon Health and Community Services Department. No county general funds are involved. Rod Cook is the Director of Health, Housing, Human Services. Go ahead, Rod.
Yes, approval of amendment number 6 will extend the end date of the eligible grant expenditure from July 1, 2021 through December 31st, 2021 to July 1st, 2021 through June 30, 2022 to continue system diversion, homelessness prevention, and rapid rehousing services.
Okay. I think we're just going to do quick, this is a long one, so unless, colleagues, there's really something burning.
Okay.
Let's just keep going. Let's
Item
motor
2,
through.
approval of an amendment to a revenue agreement with Care Oregon for dental health expansion, adding an incentive payment model. Anticipated value of the agreement is $400,000. Funding is through Care Oregon. No county general funds are involved.
Yeah, Care Oregon will pay Clackamas County up to $3 per member per month based on improvement of stated goals. This is kind of one of those incentive grants that if we do extra with the patients coming in, they'll pay us a little bit more per client. So this allows those funds to come into our clinics.
Okay.
Item 3, approval of a subrecipient grant agreement with Columbia Care Services for residential treatment services. Agreement value not to exceed $629,858. Funding is through federal pass-through dollars and the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, this will provide residential treatment services to eligible Clackamas County residents, ensures safe, healthy, and secure communities through the provision of mental health services.
Okay.
4, approval of an amendment to a federal subrecipient grant agreement with Clackamas Women's Services for rental assistance services, adjusting funding sources and grant duration. Agreement value remains at $1,204,804. Funding is through the Federal Emergency Rental Assistance Funds, Oregon Housing and Community Services, and U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. No county general funds are involved.
Yeah, what's really happening in this contract is that it's an amendment to adjust the funding source. So all the resources and all the services stay the same.
Okay.
Item 5, approval of a program agreement with Parenting Now to conduct a pilot group for Haga de la Familia en un Placer, Make Parenting a Pleasure, Parenting Education. Agreement value is $5,000. Funding is through Parenting Now. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, this is a pilot program, and it will provide feedback to the Parenting Now about parents' acceptance of activities and discussions. This is for Latinx families.
Okay.
Item 6, approval of a subrecipient agreement with Parrot Creek Child and Family Services for alcohol and drug recovery housing assistance. Agreement value not to exceed $501,196.30. Funding is through federal pass-through dollars and the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, provides housing assistance and services for Clackamas County residents in alcohol and drug recovery to assist them in becoming self-sufficient and obtaining permanent housing placements.
Okay.
Item 7, approval of an amendment to a non-federal subrecipient grant agreement with Northwest Housing Alternatives for system diversion, homelessness prevention, and rapid rehousing services, extending the agreement duration. Agreement value remains at $600,000. Funding is through the Oregon Housing and Community Services Department. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, approval of amendment number 5 basically extends the grant period from July 1, 2021 through December 31st, 2021 to a new period of July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022.
Okay.
Item 8, approval of an amendment to a non-federal subrecipient grant agreement with Northwest Family Services for youth-focused system diversion, homelessness prevention, and rapid rehousing services, extending the agreement duration. The agreement value remains at $161,000. Funding is through Oregon Housing and Community Services. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, this is similar. It will extend the grant. The new period would be July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022, and it continues the system diversion, homelessness prevention, and rapid rehousing services.
Okay.
Item 9, approval of an amendment to an intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Department of Human Services providing for educational services to eligible Clackamas County residents on Medicare, Medicaid, fraud, waste, and abuse, modifying the program administrator. The agreement value remains at $10,000. Funding is through the U.S. Administration for Community Living and the Oregon Department of Human Services. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, this is a technical change as well. It changes the funding source from Department of Community-Based Services to Oregon Department of Housing Services. Everything else stays the same.
Okay.
Item 10, approval of an intergovernmental grant agreement with the Oregon Department of Human Services for temporary assistance for needy families, pilot partnership project to connect Clackamas County program participants to behavioral health resources. Grant value is $227,300. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Human Services. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, and this supports the workforce unit at Children and Families Unit, and it would help with the provide navigation services for their clients that they're helping with workforce issues.
Item 11, approval to apply for a grant renewal from the Oregon Department of Human Services to continue the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, Training and Employment Program. Grant value is $151,825.72. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Human Services, and matching funds of $151,825.72, of which, of the matching funds, $100,000 is budgeted county general funds, and $51,825.72 is other children, family, and community connections funds, not general funds. Go ahead.
Yes, and what we're trying to draw your attention to here is that you as a commission provide some county general fund for the workforce effort, and so this is how we're matching what you provide with other funds that are available to us. And the end result will be this works with our workforce program as well, with the SNAP recipients, that's welfare, TANF, to deliver employment, training, and job placement services. The program will serve a total of 120 low-income residents.
Item 12, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Multnomah County for the provision of veterans-directed care services to eligible Clackamas County residents. The agreement value is $313,180.88. Funding is through the U.S. Administration for Community Living. No county general funds are involved.
Yeah, I sound like I'm being redundant here, but to provide, this one will provide supports for veterans-directed care services for eligible veterans who reside in Clackamas County.
Okay.
Item 13, approval of a low-income household water assistance program agreement with Clackamas River Water for reimbursement of water and wastewater services on behalf of eligible low-income households. Agreement value not to exceed $840,019, subject to further appropriations. Funding through the Oregon Department of Housing and Community Services. No county general funds are involved.
Yeah, and you'll remember these from last week. We had a few of these at different jurisdictions, but this basically allows for a funding if someone can't pay their bill. Now, this agreement will allow us to pay that service provider.
All right.
Item 14, approval for an amendment to a provider services agreement with Care Oregon implementing the shared accountability model. Annual amendment value is $500,000. The annual agreement value is increased to $3,500,000. Funding is through Care Oregon. No county general funds are involved.
This amendment would be considered an incentive payment to our existing provider agreement with Care Oregon. It's like I mentioned before, it kind of incentivizes us to do extra with the clients or the patients in this case, and so we get a fee for that when we do additional work. It would be like if you're coming in for dental, we ask about your diabetes, those type of things.
Item 15, approval of a revenue agreement with Care Oregon for dental care organization support. Agreement value is $145,002. Funding is through Care Oregon. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, the purpose of this agreement is to ensure access to quality dental care for Care Oregon members by reducing barriers to care and increasing engagement in dental services.
Okay.
Item 16, approval to apply for a federal grant to fund employment services for recently released incarcerated individuals. Grant value is $900,000. Funding is through the U.S. Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Assistance. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, and I think the administrator spoke to that one, but it's basically what was already said. This request for approval to apply for a 3-year grant to provide employment services to those entering society after incarceration.
Right. Okay.
And we
good.
add all these to the consent agenda for this Thursday, Commissioners.
I would say yes. Colleagues?
Yeah, just want to comment on, we are busy county. This is a
Yeah,
lot.
this was
a lot of,
wow.
yeah,
A lot of
We
stuff.
appreciate you supporting us doing the work.
Well,
of course.
anytime.
All right, thank you,
We
Rod.
appreciate you.
So all these items you discussed today will go to this Thursday's business meeting consent agenda, except the ARPA grant for MISO will add as a discussion item to this Thursday.
Okay.
Thank you. Next, several requests for policy sessions, and we are following the protocol you've asked for, Commissioners. So these are not board direction items. These are new items staff would like to bring forward, and we're simply seeking your approval to schedule a policy session or to say, nope, no interest in discussing this. That's the request today. There were memos on each of these items. We'll start with the Department of Transportation and Development, who has 2 requests from the Planning Division. So Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development, will explain further the excellent memo he wrote. How's that?
Not sure if it's excellent.
I'm teeing you up here.
Rushed.
Teeing you up here.
Not on letterhead or anything. It's
Okay.
great. Thank you so much, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. I don't know how I do this. We're here today asking for 2 specific policy sessions. One, on behalf of the Planning Department. One is in regards to our long-range planning work program. It is if you recall, it's a 2-year plan, but we like to do a midpoint check-in with the board to, one, to discuss the work to date, and secondly, assure we are aligned with the objectives you'd like to see moving forward. That is the first request. The second request is essentially we go forward with a minor and time-sensitive amendment package that comes forward on a cycled basis. It's pretty minor stuff, but again, it's something we like to share with the board before we go out and start having public hearings. We also speak with the Planning Commission prior to that and bring all those comments to you for consideration before we move forward with it. So we're looking for some time in July. We'll even take August, wherever time can be.
So don't ask for time, you're just asking for approval to schedule a session.
I'm just looking for approval to schedule some policy sessions.
So where does long-term rentals fit into this?
I was going to start with, I'm here to talk about a tree ordinance and all that. No,
Or short-term rentals, I'm sorry.
Short-term rentals.
short-term rentals is not my discussion right now. It is with county council. So they are discussing, they will be bringing that forward probably in June for consideration by the board.
Okay.
This
So?
June,
This June.
this month.
This
Yeah,
month.
or this coming month, yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
So Commissioners, do you agree to schedule these 2 policy sessions?
Sure, why not?
Yep,
Okay.
let's do it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Next, Department of Finance has 2 requests. We'll start with a request for a policy session on approving a updated capital asset policy. Ed Johnson is Deputy Director of Business or Finance. Elizabeth Comfort is working in elections today, so Ed will fill in. And also a well-written memo, Ed. You and Elizabeth, go ahead, Ed.
I'm Ed Johnson, Deputy Finance Director, Department of Finance. We have 2 policies. One is the capital asset policy, and the second is the debt management policy that we are recommending that would be presented at a policy session. The capital assets policy is a new policy, and it would provide guidance on how we're managing land capital assets such as land, software, building, and improvements to these buildings. And currently, we have 2 paragraphs in our ACFR, the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, that provides guidance on the management of capital assets, but we need a formalized policy.
Sounds good.
And then the second policy that we would like to present at a policy session is a debt management policy. There is one that was approved, but it was back or issued in 1996, December 1996. So it would be an overhaul to this policy and providing some more, just updating the policy.
Let's see,
in the
1996 is a long time. Yep.
Exactly.
Okay.
So may we have approval to schedule 2 policy sessions, one on a capital asset policy, which will be a new policy, second, updating the quite old debt issuance and management policy.
Yes, we do, I think, colleagues, right?
So I just,
Question?
one observation, I don't know if it's just because it's either a photocopy or just maybe it's the iPad versus the PC, but I couldn't open any of the attachments in the
documents
document.
that were shared.
Okay, that's on that's not on him, it's on us. We'll work with,
Okay.
our teams to see what happened. Apologize.
Yeah.
So it's,
Were you able to open it?
yeah, but it was tough because somehow just to let you know, the formatting on the iPad is really wonky. So,
We'll take care of that.
that I was able to open.
I got 2 pages open, but I can't, like the document created by Jennifer Johnson, for example, I can't
Open
I
it.
can't open that. It looks like a PDF, maybe, and
Yes,
then the
they're all-
Word
they're all-
document.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I
those don't-
couldn't open those
don't-
documents.
Those don't open.
Speak, go ahead.
So-
Tony has an update, go ahead.
And maybe they didn't.
Commissioners, that second page is related to a signature process that finance uses to sign that first page. It is not the documents themselves. It's purely a signature process
Okay.
on this memo.
Okay.
Just can't open it's an issue with the iPad. We'll take care of it offline, commissioners.
Oh, I think we're okay.
Well, I think we're okay moving forward with these policy sessions. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Final request for policy session is from Health, Housing, Human Services, or a session on transit projects. Rod will present, also an equally well-written memo if you're able to open it. Go ahead, Rod.
Thank you. Yes, we'd like to request a policy as well, policy session to review the proposed transit projects plan to be funded by statewide Transit Improvement Fund, also known as STIF. This program, now referred to as the Statewide Transit Improvement Fund, is distributed by formula to the Tri-County region with TriMet as the direct recipient. Funds are then distributed based on where payroll taxes are generated. We anticipate Clackamas County receiving about a little over $3 million. I have in the back, if you have questions, I have Christina Babcock, who's our resident expert, and Brenda Durbin, Director of Social Services, if you have questions about this. Otherwise, we'll just bring it to the policy session.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you. So question, we're doing quite a bit of, I don't know if you want to call it right-sizing or restructuring or streamlining or consolidating, especially around in H3S in regards to housing. And this one has always been curious to me, how the transportation, and I know there's a whole history and how it all got started, but I'm wondering if at what point or if there'll be a conversation about consolidating these transportations into DTT.
Yes, our team and Dan's team, our DTD's team, they are in conversations already about transportation overall. What I could tell you on the front end is that some of the types of transportation that we do from a human services side is very specific, and I think that their word transit really has some definition behind it. It's like these quick, like I'll take you to meals, I'll take you to appointments, those type of things, as opposed to public transportation that we're used to in terms of a typical bus service. But they are having conversations. Those conversations are going really well, and I think they're going to bring something to you as a team.
Well, I don't know if it will be appropriate for this policy session, but I would really love to understand how H3S's transportation conversation is unique unto H3S, if that could be something that could be if that makes sense to be included.
In lay terms for my brain, it's like specialized services versus typical or traditional public transportation is where we'll do the divide. But we'll have more conversation about that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, just one correction on the first paragraph, in 2018, comma, with the approval of HB, should read 2017, not 23017.
Okay.
We're just looking to the future, Commissioners. That'll be in the year 23017.
It's going to be a tough day when there's 23,000 House bills, so.
That's true.
That'll be a tough day for sure.
Okay, so may we schedule this policy session?
do it.
Very good. Thank you, Rod.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Commissioners. Next, your business meeting for this Thursday, June 2nd, 2022. You have a reading and adoption of a previously approved land use ordinance. You have all the consent agenda items from today you approved, as well as the discussion item from today that you approved. If you have any questions on any item, please let me know, and we'll answer it for you before Thursday. Next, advisory board and commission appointments. Tony, go ahead, please.
First is the Clackamas County Community Health Council under the Health, Housing, and Human Services Department has recently opened recruitment for consumer and non-consumer representation. Through that recruitment process, 2 applications were received. Recommendation is as follows: Dale Voigt, appointment to a first term, and Celia Dialos Reyes, appointment to a first term.
Move for approval?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please call the poll.
Commissioner Zavas?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Vice Chair Schrader?
Aye, it is approved. Onward and upward. Tony?
And next, I have, and apologies, it'll take me a moment to pull this one together.
That's all right.
The Library District Advisory Committee is requesting the appointment of 3 individuals. One is for the City of West Lynn, Rachel Hyde. 2 are for the City of Lake Oswego, Mark Pontarelli and Sherry Swackhammer.
All
Move
right.
for approval?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the poll.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Vice Chair Schrader?
Aye, it is approved. Great. So, Gary?
Okay, next. Next, Commissioners, we like to give you a monthly update on your Performance Clackamas Strategic Plan goals, the 10 goals you have set. Today is this month is May. What month is this? This is time for an update on your goal of food production and our implementation team work. Sarah Ekman, Interim Director of Business and Community Services, and Nancy Bush, County Operating Officer, are the leads of this team. And so they will give you an update on their status. And again, this goal is by 2026, 10% increase in food production and food production acres from agricultural land in Clackamas County.
Right.
If you could make this around 45 minutes or less, that'd be ideal, please. Seriously.
Do our best.
30 minutes, 20, how much?
We were hoping 15.
Oh, wow, even better. Go ahead.
That was what we were hoping.
Go ahead, yes.
All right, thank you. Yes, Nancy Bush, County Operation Officer. So we're here today, as Gary said, to give you an update on what's going on with our food, we call it the Food Implementation Team. So there's been a lot of really good work done there, and Sarah's going to update you on what has been moving forward. They have just recently, actually, a lot of movement in this particular implementation team, which is fairly new. So it took a while for them to kind of get their footing and then be able to move forward. So Sarah, I'll turn it over to you.
Wonderful, thank you. I do want to give you an update today and also express some great appreciation to the great team that is behind the scenes on this food implementation team, and their names are included in your packet. We've had a really, I think, thoughtful and ongoing discussion about how to approach this work, and it is a newer goal and one that is critically important to us. And so we took a little bit of time and are still in kind of a research phase that's running along a track next to us as we try to put forward some recommendations on how to move forward. So you have a memo for you today that talks a little bit about some of the pieces that we're moving forward and really wanted to highlight and feature. I actually want to skip the first page of that and come back to it because it's the Food Production Assistance Grant Overview, which is one of the outcomes that we do want to bring forward to you today and I want to share with you. However, there's a lot of work that kind of got us to this point that I'd like to highlight and then come back to that. We know a lot of information through some really key conversations with partners in the food arena. And I was pleased to be able to listen to the OSU Extension budget conversation that you all had last Monday, from the standpoint that I felt like what was shared there was really consistent with what we're finding through our research and conversations with partners like Extension and NREC, but also with the Small Business Development Center, who was mentioned, and a host of others, the Soil and Water Conservation District, Clackamas Community College, and others. So I felt like that was encouraging to know that we're all really moving in the same direction. We have over 4,000 farms in the county. 86% of those are 10 acres or less. So I know that was brought up too. A lot of small farms. 98% of those are family farms. And this really sat with me when I read this, that farms earning a living wage are 13% of the total numbers of farms, which we're hearing again and again that the revenue generated from farms is not such that it's encouraging a new generation of farmers to come forward. It's becoming harder and harder to farm. And then that 1% of farms are happening organically. They're doing their growing organically. So that's another piece that we've learned. It's been a really interesting process, and we've had great conversations with some of those partners that I've mentioned. We are seeing that the aging farming community is an issue that farmers are wrestling with. There's a lack of interest in succession planning. There's a lack of farmland availability, which we also knew. And then I heard in the presentation from last week on the budget with OSU Extension the same that there's a lot of hobby farms. And so those farmers are not interested in increasing or expanding their capacity because they're really thriving in that smaller hobby arena. We've seen extreme weather in terms of heat domes, unseasonal freezes, and all of that, which are impacting our farmers. And then it's getting harder and harder to compete with the large farms that are using other practices. Farms on the market are taking a long time to sell. People don't have the resources that they need to be able to purchase farms, and so land transferring to new farmers is also something that's really difficult. Those costs per acre are quite high now. So that's one thing that we're seeing. The average age is over 70. We talked about the succession planning and all of that. So we were fortunate, and Commissioner Savas, I heard you mention some of the work that had been done in the past on the agriculture investment plan and surveying our farms in the past. That took place almost 10 years ago. So we were fortunate to be able to pull out that plan and revisit that. And we're going through that in an effort to pull out the pieces that will work for this goal, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel where we don't need to. And there's a lot of great work that went into that. So some of the pieces that we've put together, and I want to spend a little bit of time highlighting those for you today, are some ideas. And we'd love to hear from you, and how those sit with you as you know the work and the intent behind this goal. One of the ideas is to establish kind of a hub that will serve this. And this will ultimately result in this becoming an ongoing work element in the economic development work plan, which it has been in the past. We're proposing a small grants program, which is what I wanted to come back to and spend the remainder of our time on once I go through these. And then looking at if there's a function for an advisory board that would serve around food production as well, or if there's an existing advisory board we can tap into. We do believe that supporting our partners, such as the Small Business Development Center and OSU Extension and a host of others, is another critical way we could advance this work in the county, because they are doing such great work to support all of these efforts, and they do it day in and day out. I did hear NREC's representative on Monday talk about looking for new crop opportunities, and that's something that they're really pursuing. And so in partnership with them, we could advance that work. And then we were also encouraged by our conversations with NREC to look for new funding opportunities to drive research and development and entertain how we could support policy through you going forward, of course, to be developed. So those are some of our key findings. With the main piece that I wanted to share with you today was the development of our Food Production Assistance Grant Program. So there was a flyer attached in your packet. One of the tasks you charged us with in economic development was to develop a grant program that would utilize lottery dollars through an application process. So we're in the process of doing that, and we'll be bringing that back to you in the near weeks. But as part of that, one thing that we felt could really make a contribution to the food production arena was to have a portion of that that's dedicated to food production. In processing, I guess, in learning about how this might be able to help our county, we really wanted to develop something that was nimble enough to support both our partners, but also a private food grower and those kinds. And so what we put together here was a proposal of $250,000 where there would be a competitive application process for entities to apply. And we left this fairly broad. We said food production related businesses or other entities that have a direct nexus to increasing food production and or food production acreage. We know that entities such as the Oregon Agricultural Trust work for land expansion and preservation, and so we wanted to have it be flexible enough that an entity like that could apply for funds, or if I had a farm, I could apply for funds and still be considered in that application process. Project proposals would need to make a convincing case that their project would meet the intent of our grant program, which is to serve the goal to expand food production and food production acres by 10% by 2026. We would allow businesses with 50 or less employees, nonprofits, and then we would have an application review committee similar to the small grants program that's facilitated through the board's office, where we would review the applications and make decisions and then share that out. We're on track to do a notice of funding opportunity if this were to be approved that we could distribute this summer and kind of do our initial offering of this, see how it goes, and then adjust it to come back and improve it for the next year. We foresee this being an annual opportunity. We really wanted to see and think about how we could support everyone as they plan for their upcoming funding cycles as well. So if once we establish something like this and it's known to be an ongoing opportunity, it would give partner agencies an ability to apply for their next funding cycle, a farm to apply for their next growing season, however that might be. They could apply for a capital cost if there's something they need, or they could apply for succession planning. And we do envision putting together some priorities within there that are outcomes of what we found through our interview process with our partners. We would put together the application review committee and then pull all of that together so that we could put those out. It would be $250,000 if we did $10,000 awards. It would be up to 10, so somebody could apply for less, and then we would fund as many as we could through that process. If it were undersubscribed, the vision would be that then the remainder of those dollars would go into the other funding pot for the year through the other economic development projects. So that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, well, we have some questions here. I see lights. So I'm going to shut them off. I'm going to try that, okay? How about Paul and Sonia?
Yeah,
What questions do you have?
I'm looking at top of page 2 on the highlights, and it says there are 4,000, as you said, 297 total farms, and 86% are 10 acres or less, and 98% are family farms. I'm curious to know how many of those are food production, right? And then how many acres are assigned to that food production? And also, how much of that production is local market, and how much of that production is export? I think there's a lot of interest, and rightfully so, that we, ideally, I know we don't, but ideally we grow our own local food source, and we have that available for us. But as our population grows and the land doesn't grow, right? We have a fixed amount of land. It's not something that, even if we did meet it today, we couldn't meet it in the future, unless there's, more an industrial type of an approach, hydroponics or something like that in the commercial areas or the urban areas. But I think that's an important thing to know that your goal and your work on food is something that we actually have, a more realistic approach. I do appreciate the 1% farmed organically, but I also like to know how much of that. I assume that's all food, but I'm not going to jump to that conclusion, because I think other industries that are making non-food also want to jump on that organic aspect as well.
Yeah. And we can refine that data with our partners, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you. This was really interesting. I am curious, I heard about the loss of farmland nationally, and I don't know the numbers locally. Do we have that data as to how much farmland we're losing and how quickly?
Not at this moment. I think we can get it.
I mean, is it something that is of interest, like when the task force met to talk about all these issues, was that one of the things that came up?
It has come up. We've seen it in a lot of news articles. Similar, reading about that trend nationally, about farm acreage being bought by large entities. And so I think we could dig into that a little bit and look at how that's applying to us locally. It's been on that national scale that we've seen those articles and reviewed them just in terms of trends and.
Yeah, I can't remember
seeing.
the numbers, but it's like a percentage of, within a certain amount of time. It's really shocking when they do the quantification of it. I've always wondered how that's affecting us locally.
Yeah.
So, but this is great. I really support this process forward. I love utilizing the small grants program in a thoughtful, targeted, strategic way. I think that's great idea, great way to frame it. I really like it.
Yep. So I would think, Sarah, you could get some of that information from the Oregon Department of Agriculture. They should have all that information county by county. They should also have information on what our top crops here in the county. I know Christmas trees has always been one of them, but also berries. And so all that statistical data is under their umbrella. As far as the ag investment plan, I worked on that back in the day. I'd like to get a copy, and I'm glad that you're updating it, because I think that's something that we have, with Rick Gruen's loss, we haven't had the capacity to really kind of continue that kind of work. We did work on a food hub, and there is somewhere in the netherworld of our county here, there is probably documentation of the meetings and the farmers we brought together and what they told us their needs were in terms of getting that information and that connectivity together. So that is out there somewhere. The issue with that was it didn't have a place to formally land. We essentially wanted to have a online hub that anyone who was interested in farming would have a one-stop shop. Whether or not that's still a good idea is up in the air, but you might want to see if we can find some of that information as well. The other group I would strongly suggest we engage with is the Oregon Farm Bureau. You've already mentioned NREC as well. They're our research arm. They have a very active board, so involving them or even involving them as a board might be a really, I'm just throwing ideas out here. And they can also give you the information in the county of what the major crops are, where they're grown, what their new research is, and if we could somehow connect with that to let people know about it. Also thinking there was another group I thought we should connect with, but it'll come to me later. The other thing is, with this, we're expanding food production. What about food processing is another huge sector we have here in this county. So has that been looked at under the umbrella of food production? That food processing and is kind of part of that economic driver in a larger sense.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you for bringing that up. It has, and we did want to include the food processing in our full definition, which we did in an earlier edition of this, yes.
And you might find notes on the Green Ribbon Committee that we did way back in 2010, 11, I believe. And that was where that we brought everyone together looking, again, I don't know where their notes are. I don't know where that information has been deposited, but we had a whole committee pulled together called the Green Ribbon Committee that looked at all of these options for food. And then we also, I would suggest that we take a look at the farmers markets. I know we must have a list of who they are here in this county, but I don't know if they have a larger organization with one another or if there's another organization that we can, and get some data from them about how much food they're moving through the pipeline. I don't know if they keep that kind of data, but that might be an interesting question to ask. So, Okay, so yes, Commissioner
Well,
Savas.
I just want to build on a couple things here that Commissioner Schrader just spoke to. I agree. I think maybe not that we shouldn't form another committee, but I think leveraging the NREC committee and also the Oregon Extension folks, because they're hands-on, they got the experience. It might be valuable to make sure we leverage them as best as possible. And I agree that we need to look at the added value, the processing piece for the food. But the point I forgot to make on those first requests I made for the food-oriented and the acreage and so on, is we actually include that in our material so that people know. I'd just like to get I think everyone needs to know really what the potential is and what the actual is. Because the goal's got to be realistic, right? I mean,
Yes.
I know that this folds into even some of the efforts or the thoughts on the climate action plan we're working on, that if we grow our food locally, we don't need to have it trucked and carbon spent on moving it here. But my guess is we don't have enough acreage to actually feed ourselves, is my assumption. So I think getting something that's realistic in there and is pragmatic, that we fold that in, I think it'd be a valuable resource for both those efforts.
What we had looked at regionally is Clackamas County becoming part of a larger food hub that actually supplied the metro area with as much produce. So one of the other things that might spin out with this is, how do you get it there? How do you get it to Portland markets? How do you get it to Washington markets? How do you get it here within Clackamas County? But we actually did look at a regional plan about what that would take to become one of an important food production area locally, and also there is a huge export component to China, but if these are smaller farms, that may not be as plausible of getting that kind of volume out there. But, okay, so.
One other question, and I'm
Yeah.
just curious, I don't know that we have data on this. I feel like we're like, hey, we want to know this or that and this, so prioritize, please. But with the legalization of marijuana and that farmland being used for growing marijuana, I'm interested in how much that's taken out of potential food production as well.
If we can, that might be another Department of Ag question.
I don't know if we know that, or we have any way to even, I guess there would be licenses, like we could,
There would be.
the Department of Ag might be able to help with that.
Yeah, we can include it in this kind of data revision, most certainly. I know that we have seen some of that data, and we could refine it based on what we can get from our partners, because it has been a big shift.
And have you talked to the Oregon Farm Bureau at all? Have they been involved in any of this? Do you know?
We've made initial contact to them. I have not specifically had a conversation with them, but I do believe that the request for that conversation has been put out there.
Right. Thank you. Any more questions, colleagues? All
That
right,
was an interesting topic.
thank you.
Thank you.
So I want to be clear, the board is not authorizing you to go forward in this grant program yet, because today was just an informational update, and we have to report back to the board on how to use the lottery dollars overall first. So please sit on this until we do that first, and then this can be part of that component, seeking the board's approval to use a grant program as we look at the entirety of the lottery dollar program.
Okay,
Sounds good.
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, thank you, Sarah and Nancy. Next, there was Chair Smith and Commissioner Schrader. We're going to bring an invitation to you, board, for a joint meeting of the Willamette Falls Locks Commission, which is decommissioning,
Right.
as it transitions to now the Willamette Falls Locks Authority. The event is Wednesday, June 15th, between 12:30 and 4 p.m., somewhere at the Locks. At the Locks in West Lynn.
Okay, somewhere, yeah.
So I teed you up, Commissioner Schrader. Would you like to invite your colleagues?
Yes, I would like to invite all my colleagues to that, where the commission hands over the baton to the authority, and our mission is accomplished. And I say that with a huge sigh of relief after working on this since 2003. So anyway, long time coming, but finally we're unlocking the locks. So thanks, Gary.
We'll put it on all your calendars, and we'll see if there's a specific time of a program that you can attend, because that's a 4-hour commitment. So we'll put it on your calendars as a whole, but you're all invited, commissioners.
Okay.
Okay, finally, today is Commissioner Communications.
Who wants to start, colleagues?
Well, Commissioner Savas and I were out at the Memorial Day
Yeah.
event in Lake Oswego. I have been, since they have the memorial there, which, gosh, now I can't, with COVID, I can't think of how many years it's been there. Paul, you might remember, 3 years?
I think it's 3 years, yeah.
So there've been events, they've been, I don't know, I found this one particularly moving. It was,
Yeah.
it was very well attended, and it was really an honor to be there, I must say.
Yeah, I was kind of having a moment of silence in my backyard when the planes flew over because I realized I got to see the peel off of one of them. That's always one that really just grabs you, pretty much. And you went to the VFW too, didn't you, Commissioners? Did you go?
No, I did not make it to VFW.
Yeah, I went to the VFW yesterday and visited. They were pretty busy, had a lot of attendees there. And on Friday, I attended, Commissioner Scholl as well. I was there for the Ottoman Park dedication of a statue for the emergency responders, lifeguards that worked in
Oh, right. Yeah, I was there as well.
Yeah, you were there earlier. They mentioned you were there earlier. And, yeah, it was kind of inspiring in the sense that on the eve of Memorial Day weekend, and, there was loss of life there as also in High Rocks in Clackamas County. And, I think my comment was sometimes it takes, unfortunately, loss of life to really result in saving the lives of many, 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 many more based on either policies or safety improvements and so forth, so on. So it was very nice. AMR did a great job with that, and Commissioner Scholl said a few words, and other than that, been busy trying to catch up on my emails and phone calls through this deal. I'm still working on that. So there's some folks out there that have emailed me, and I will be reaching out to them as I can.
It's
It was
tough.
overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. When you figure out the science of that, will you do a policy session and give us some insights?
Not sure it's a science, but it's an effort.
It's an effort. It's a good effort, too. So, yeah, I had a lovely, quiet Memorial Day, thinking about our war, the Vietnam War. At least that was our generation's war, and particularly all the folks that we lost in that war, and my brother-in-law being one of them. So it is probably one of the days where we really need to reflect on what our country means to us, what our servicemen and women do for us, and how we remember those who have passed in duty to their country. So it was a really kind of a quiet day. Other than that, I just visited a lot of farmers markets. I always say I have an issue, and then I have to invite people over for dinner, so get ready, guys. I'll have to invite you over because I always go to farmers markets and buy too much, supporting our local agricultural community. So that was great. Found some fresh seafood in Lake Oswego with Linda's crab and clams, so I made a seafood fest this weekend. And, just love them. Fresh salads, carrots are out. Fresh asparagus is there. You can buy bouquets of flowers. And I usually go to Lake Oswego, Oregon City, and Milwaukee are the three closest to me. And so today was a great weekend. Well, this past weekend was a great weekend to kind of just go there and take a look at what our agricultural communities have to offer us. All fresh, all delicious, and very healthy. So, all right, Gary, anything else you want to add?
That is all for today.
All righty, thank you. I guess do I gavel us out? We'll adjourn? Yes.